Welsh Boobat's 4th season in the Regal Draft League has come to a close. And while it ended somewhat in disappointment, it was a first round playoff exit. It was overall an incredibly positive season for us. Now, there are definitely things I wish I'd done differently, and more than a few things that could and perhaps should have gone better. But those things do not outweigh the positives for me. After the bitter disappointment of Season 3, this was a huge improvement, and I'm not going to overlook that. This is really strange for me because I normally suck at giving myself praise. I'm usually very, very self-critical. That will definitely come, I assure you. But for once, I'm giving myself a break and starting in a positive manner. To review this season, I decided to use this video to answer a number of questions from our stakeholders. Press conference style. It'll be structured in the usual manner of draft, season, team review, learnings, future. So, starting things right at the beginning then. Obviously, you prep for the draft, but it's rare that you're able to get all of the Pokemon you want. Did you have any specific replacements in mind for each Mon, and what were they? The team I was looking for, as you can see, Sun with Mouseape. So my replacement options were fairly limited, but I did have some options in mind should someone snag my preferred Mons for each. Whims could have optimally been replaced with Murkrow, but Ribombee or Noivern would also have worked if both Whims and Murkrow were taken. The main thing I wanted this slot to do was be fast, set Tailwind and Sunny Day, while providing some additional support to the team. None of the alternatives bring to the table what Whims has, since none of them have multi-hit moves, power up Rage Fist, if they're led with Ape. They do all have U-turn for pivoting off my own Annihilate, and they do all have some unique moves that I liked. Murkrow has Haze, Ribombee has Pollen Puff, Noivern, which was kind of my preference out of those, as Boom Burst and Breaking Swipe. So while they weren't necessarily optimal for the team I was looking to put together, they all would have brought something to the table if I'd not been able to snag Whims. For what I was looking for, Volcarona needed to be a special attacking Sunsweeper with setup options. This could have been Hisuian Typhlosion, Charizard, or Delphox. There weren't any other Pokemon I really looked at. I mainly wanted Volcarona because of the additional options it has. Of the replacements, only Delphox really brings some kind of support tools to the table. The others would have been more offensive, cheaper options. Venu was probably the easier of the core to replace, since all Venu really is a somewhat fast chlorophyll boosted sleep powder mon. I could have gone the more offensive route with either of the Lilligant forms, or the more supportive route with Jumpluff. Either of these would have worked, but none of them really have the bulk that Venusaur brought. Quag, I just wanted to be a bulky, supportive water type that could output a little bit of damage. My preference in this slot was actually Vaporeon, but depending on budget, this could honestly have been any bulky water type that learned Yawn, some kind of recovery, and a fairly hard-hitting move. Same goes for Berserker. As much as I wanted the Viking Cat, it was really just a fairly offensive fake-out user that wasn't weak to, but preferably resisted flying. So I could have just as easily gone Raichu, for example. Giving up Ursa Luna and allowing another coach to take it was a huge gamble. Did you ever consider doing something different, like keeping the team as it was, or trading Mouseape instead? At the time, no. I saw the opportunity to get close to the team I originally planned for and just went for it. I have to admit, I doubted my choice almost immediately. Even more so when Ursa Luna got picked up. With that sweet hindsight, even before the end of the season, I kind of regretted my choice. The type chart shows that this was trade was a mistake. And this mistake was staring me in the face on the original team as well. That flying weakness. The Raptor, Murkrow, Pelipper, Salamence, Corviknight. 5 out of my 7 matches after the trade had a fairly decent offensive threat that had Stab flying. That alone made this trade a blatantly obvious mistake. I was so focused on having that Whimsape run back after the disappointment of Season 3. And add to that the fact that I'm way more comfortable using Annihilate than I am Ursa Luna. Let me overlook this and ignore the obvious problems with the squad and just huff on that sweet copium telling me that this was a winning team. Going into the season, what were your goals? And what would define this as a successful season? Well, of course, everyone wants to win. That's everyone's ultimate goal heading into a draft league season. But being realistic, I wanted to make playoff. That was the main and probably the big goal for this season. After missing out last season, I needed to get at least that. And that, for me, was the barrier for a successful season. My stretch goal was to go positive. A 5-4 record from the regular season would have made me absolutely ecstatic. What was your most fun matchup this season? And which was the toughest? Most fun matchup. It's a tough one. I think I might have to come back to this because there were a couple of really fun matches. Toughest matchup, if you take week 1 versus Evney out of it, because that was probably the most humbling defeat I think I've ever had. And week 1 for me usually is pretty tough. I think it's a toss-up between week 3 versus Tiago and week 8 versus Tommy. They were both really difficult for different reasons. Tiago, aka Twimbly, is just always tough. He's such a good player and always drafts ridiculously good teams. Tommy is no less good a player, but you never know what you're getting with him. Does he have his throwing arm attached this week? How well has he prepped? This season you add in that his team was just insanely good into mine, it becomes even tougher. If I'm forced to pick one or the other, I'd go for Tommy, just because prepping for Salamence and Cinderace was so hard, so annoying. Fun though, week 9 versus Draco was fun because I think it was the one match where I really got to play the team almost as I intended when I theory crafted it all together. Week 5 versus Breloom was fun because I got to see the power of Specs Volcarona in the sun, and the whole mistake of disrespecting Murkrow on my part made it way more tense a battle than it needed to be. The most fun battle, though, has to be Week 7 versus Chow. Chow always brings really fun strats, always drafts a crazy team. Things don't always work out, but it's always so good to see him trying something that people just don't expect and don't see coming. And every season he just gets better and better, making it even more fun to play him. This season, I just loved seeing him get his first win. And for him to get it versus me, I don't know, it just gave me this just huge sense of pride for him. And it was a fun match for me to play because, honestly, I prepped pretty badly and I had to think on my feet and use my just general game knowledge to have a chance at winning. It was amazing to see a strat of his that he'd been trying to get off all season finally work as he wanted. And the aftermatch of the match, him being so happy at the win, it's just amazing to see. Now, onto the more team-related questions. Who was your MVP of the season? I think it just has to be Volcarona, right? 16 kills in 12 matches, led the team in kill death. The power and versatility of this Mon is just so good, and I find it really fun to use, which helps even more. Sure, it missed a couple of heat waves here and there, which cost me a game or two, but it also landed some clutch ones to win us games. The special bulk as well, I think that's what gave us the win versus Wake. Yeah, it's got to be Volk. Which Pokemon was the biggest surprise of the season? Tristy. Absolutely top. I drafted it mostly just as a fun pick. It's a Pokemon that I've really wanted to use for a long time, but it just surprised me time and time again with its ability to take a hit despite how mediocre its defensive stats are, and also how much damage it could put out. I had just so much fun building with Tox. It just massively exceeded all my expectations. Which Pokemon was the biggest disappointment? Yeah, no brainer. This has to be Mousehold. Mouse has a lot of things going for it, even outside of the Mouse-Ape duo. It's a very fast support with Friend Guard and a deep move pool. In regular VGC, it could be an absolute menace. But it's not being directly prepared for there. In draft, where, especially on my team, on my squad, you pretty much know exactly what it's going to do. It's hard to come up with a set that no one's going to see coming. This season especially, it was incredibly tough to make an offensive Mousehold work. Too many steel types, too many ghost types. It wasn't worth the risk. This left me running a pure support mouse, and I guess with how I'm used to running redirection mons, I want them to be able to click follow me over and over and over again. Just stick around. I was never confident Mousehold could do that. It's funny. After the trade, I think I clicked beat up on Mousehold maybe 3 times. I ended up using him more as a bluff than anything. Maybe it's a me issue, but it just seemed too frail for what I wanted it to do. The speed is really nice, but as a mixed bag offensive support, I don't think it's worth the points. I really think I could have picked up a better Annihilate Enabler for less points than that, and then used the points I'd saved elsewhere to maybe get a bulky redirection mon. Overall, how happy were you with how the team performed this season? This is a hard question, because despite what I would call a successful season, and honestly, I am really, really happy with how the season went, I'm fairly disappointed in the team overall. But that's mostly down to me as the coach, more than the Pokemon themselves. Well, the household. The obvious weaknesses with the squad, the redraft version, the post-trade version, it made it really hard to do what I wanted to do in some of the matches. Flying weakness was an absolute nightmare in 3 of the matches. The fire weakness made that Sun Mirror versus Braylon Boy way harder than it needed to be. So I am disappointed in the team overall, but I think that was totally on me as the coach for not identifying and patching those weaknesses. I played around the flying pretty well in a couple of matches, and I was able to successfully prep for and win the Sun Mirror, which I think for a lot of people would have just glossed over the issues. So yeah, disappointed in the team, but more so disappointed in how I put the team together, not necessarily how the team performed, if that makes sense. What were your biggest takeaways from this season? I think my biggest takeaway or learning from this season was around squad building. The way I went around building the initial team was, I want Whimsy. What else can I add that also takes advantage of Whimsicott's tools? This led me to a Sun mode. The problem with that was that Volk, as the Sun Sweeper, has very similar weaknesses to the majority of Sun supports and Annihilate. So it made the squad overall very easy to prep for. Even if I'd kept the bear and traded Mouseape, I still would have been in a very similar situation because I had no real switch-ins to what Volcarona was weak to. No one on the squad wanted to take a flying type attack. I also learned a lesson about how I play, or I guess fail to play, redirection and support Pokemon. I don't like to run 2 very passive supports. So a bulky Mousehold plus a bulky cloaked Whims was really freaking hard for me to bring to the same game. And although Mousehold is fast with some good tools, I struggled with wanting Mouse to do too much. I wanted it to be fast enough to beat up Ape before anything else could move, but also bulky enough to follow me after that to keep Annihilate safe. And I never felt like it was possible to do both. As a positive though, later in the season, started to lean more into Sash Whimsicott and leading that double protect into fake out. So you'd have a Sash Whims with protect next to, I don't know, a setup Volk or something that also had protect. So on the fake out, you could double protect. Whims doesn't get the Sash broken. Then turn 2, you click Tailwind plus whatever. And that led to me kind of embracing the more offensive Whimsicott a lot more, a lot better than I had in season 3 or even earlier on this season. So I think biggest takeaway, build team better. Build squad better. Don't try to do two attack, two defense. Needs to be 2 attack, 1 support, 1 defense, 1 semi-offensive support, and draft the team, build the squad initially like that. What are your plans for season 5 and beyond? Ooh. Well, I think the 5th season in Woobat's franchise history will hopefully also be the 5th season of the Regal Draft League. Its owner and fellow coaches make this one of the most fun and competitive leagues I've seen. I would like to get to a place where I play maybe in another league with a fun format, but with other content I'm working on and have been working on for months now. I would struggle to make time to prep and play in a second league because I would want to make content on that league. So for the foreseeable future, until ADHD brain allows, I will probably only play in the RDL unless it's a shorter league that I can fit in to an off season. So never say never. In terms of my approach to draft, I learned even more about myself, my playstyle, my approach to competitive Pokemon battles this season, and I think I took a pretty big leap forward in my in-game play towards the end of the season, and I want to continue that growth and learning. I also want to try something new next season. I hope we go back to Regulation F, where we have Legendaries and Paradox allowed again. As much as I love Reg H, it's so fun. The lower power level of the format just makes a lot more Pokemon viable. So for me, alternating between the 2 regulations keeps things fresh. And although I've said it a million times, I would love to be able to use restricteds. And a Regulation G League, I can definitely see why that's an issue. With how a VGC Draft League works, certain Pokemon just warp the power level, and because we don't want to be introducing bans, you have to believe that unless something wild happens, Calyrex in one form or another is going to win the league. It would take way too much balancing to make restricted Pokemon work. I do see that now. shouting from the rooftops for restricteds and mythicals and all this insanity to be allowed. I've learned, and I do now see how much work it would take to balance things like Miraidon, Calyrex Shadow Rider, Terrapagos. They're so freaking strong because only one person can use them. It has to be balanced correctly to make the league competitive. I do have something exciting in mind for Season 3. We'll give you that little teaser. We shall see if the draft gods let it happen. And with that, Welsh Woobats' 4th season is now officially over. We didn't win, but we did achieve our goals. We made playoffs. And that is a massive, massive W in my book. So, huge thank you to everyone that's been along for this crazy ride. And I hope you stick around for the next leg of the journey. See you all, Season 5.